Okay, so the first class, exam 1, lecture 1, we're going to talk about introduction and a little bit of history of microbiology. And this is the slides right there. You can read, and this is the right side. I'm going to explain something for you. So the first question, what is microbiology? This is like all the other classes. So ask yourself, what is microbiology? I will say that is science of microorganism. Okay, and what are the science of the microorganisms? Then we're going to first talk about the examples of the microorganism. Then right there you will see algae, bacteria, virus, protozoa, fungi. Just give you an example. We'll talk about detail in the next slides. So what are the science behind that? So we mentioned, okay, enumeration. We mentioned identification. Okay, a little bit. Biochemistry, genetics, and then clinical and medical microbiology, and last one, applied microbiology. If you are in this building for plant soil science major, you're going to talk about soil microbiology, environmental microbiology, water microbiology. That is this part. If you go to medical school, medical microbiology will be the section. We talk about bacteria, virus, especially these days. And the biochemistry, genetics, if you do research, you're going to do that. Enumeration, identification, use the broad base in every area. So what is the microbiology? Science of microorganism. Now, here we mention algae, bacteria, virus, protozoa, fungi. In this class, we had a limited time, so we will focus on bacteria because this relates to the biosafety. In the lab, what we can do is biosafety level 2. Some of the virus is biosafety level 3 and level 4. We will not have that condition to do. So we're going to focus on bacteria, and we're going to mention virus and fungi a little bit in the lecture and the lab section. Just want to let you know. Most of the time, we're going to focus on the bacteria. Okay? Okay, this slide is important. We're going to talk about what is microorganism. So we talk about microbiology is the science of microorganism. Then what is microorganism? Okay, how we do that? I always do is split this word to half. You're a native speaker. Lots of you native West Virginia. You know English better than me. What means microorganism? M-I-C-R-O. Too small to see. Is that right? What is organism? Live body. So you understand what means microorganism. A live body is too small to see by naked eyes. We can't use our eyes to see. We need to rely on a tool called microscopy. So therefore we have light field microscope and electronic microscope, a laser confocal microscope. We're going to talk about in practice in the lab, some of them. So that's the first definition of the microorganism. Is a live body that is too small to see by naked eye, has to be relied on your tool, which is microscopy. And I want to tell you one thing. This definition is fit 90% of the microorganisms. There is some, like a mushroom. Some people say it's a fungi, but we can using our naked eye to see. Is that belonging to microorganism? Some people say yes, some people say no. There's a debate there. This definition fits 90% of the microorganism. And I also wanted to let you know, there are millions or billions of microorganisms in the world. What we know is only 5%. There is 95% we don't know at all, but they are existing, okay? That's why you have those emerging pathogens happens all the time. Something like COVID-19 or those stuff. Those are called emerging pathogens. You never heard about that. Because we only know 5%, 95% we don't know. It just suddenly showed up sometimes. Okay, so just let you know this. Okay, the next question. What are the examples of microorganisms? Okay, so that's going to be talking about the examples. Everybody knows it right now. You have virus. Okay, coronavirus ID, COVID 19, COVID-19. This is you know about it. The example of the virus. HIV virus. Of course, flu virus, cold virus. Okay, well, that's all the examples of microorganisms. Before COVID-19, you may know, everybody knows the example is bacteria. Okay, what are the examples of bacteria? You heard about E. coli. Even you do not take in microbiology class, you know E. coli. You heard about salmonella, probably. For me, we are doing for the micro research, so we heard about maybe listeria. Those are the examples of bacteria. Okay, we know virus, bacteria. What we heard about before? Do you heard about fungi? Yes, so you heard about fungi. Fungi has two sections, which is yeast and molds. You don't know yeast, some of them. Okay, some of them maybe know. Let's say penicillin is a good example for yeast, coming from the penicillin from the metabolic process. Now molds, you know that. If you have a dog, you're renting a house outside, you see there's a moisture on the side of the wall, then you see those like a greenish color there. You didn't clean very well, become moldy. That is molds. That's an example of the fungi. But what's the difference? This is 37 degrees Celsius growth, this is 25 degrees Celsius growth. Okay, those are the very obvious examples. What else? Wecoids, protists. Right there. This is a word you maybe just heard. But you know protozoa, is that right? You know a little bit about algae and maybe never heard about slime modes. You know protozoa. Okay, what is protozoa? Did you ever heard of Hox, Plasmia, Gondia? This is the one which is in a cat. So pregnant woman will not recommend to have a cat because that will cause possible miscarriage. Hox, Plasma, Gondia is protozoa. Okay, then we're going to talk about here. This is called algae. What is this? This is a bacteria. This is a protist, a little bit different from the others. This is using light as an energy. Using light as an energy, instead of using glucose, using sugar as an energy. And going through those photosynthetic process, they contribute to almost 95% of the oxygen in the world. So those we call it an example of an environmental microbiology. Okay, what is slime mold? Okay, slime molds. Slime molds, you see the two words? Because there is two different life status. This is kind of like a protozoa. Molds is like a fungi. Okay? What are the examples? An example we call it water molds. What are they used for? If there is a leafy, I'm not drawing very good. Here's a leafy. It's decayed leafy. We can clean it, is that right? There are some of the water molds they can use it for. They can eat it. This is called engulf. And they can be hydrolyzed or dedicated and destroyed. So slime molds have two lifetime status. Part of them like a protozoan, part of them like a fungi. They are using to cleaning the dust of the environmental. Okay, it's an environmental tool to cleaning those dust. It's also an environmental microorganism. Okay, the last one, Archaea, Archaea. This is Archaea. I'm going to write it up right here. Why? This is, we can say, it's a very special bacteria. But it's not a bacteria. The structure is similar, but not really the same. For example, the Archaea, they do not have peptide glycan in the cell wall. They have their very unique nucleic acids and some of the proteins, some of the lipids. That's Archaea. It's a very special bacteria. And an example here is messages, because the messages, they created 80% of the methane in the world. Okay, so that's an example for Archaea. We will be mentioned very briefly later on. For example, some of the bacteria have flagella, and the Archaea, they have endoflagella. So we call it special bacteria. Okay, all these have the same thing. What are the same for these? Cell is a single unit. That's why we call it cellular. But how about virus? It's acellular. Cell is not a single unit. Do you know the basic structure of virus? Virus is very simple. Nuclear acids, RNA or DNA, never both. What did this all say? Parameters, it's protein. So very simple. Okay, COVID-19, you have these. Corona. These are not good. They're shifting around. That's why lots of mutation there. You could have a delta, gamma. Some people say the Greek words are not going to be enough. Is that right? You're going to use the satellite name to name coronavirus. Because it's going to be shifted. So that's why they call lots of mutation. Variants comes. Okay? Now, why virus is not going to be very effective to use in some medicine? Protein, human being has a protein, is that right? If you're attacking it, you're going to attack a human being. That's a common sense you should know. But people are going to say, I'm going to attack nucleic acids. Can we do that? Yes. However, if you're attacking nucleic acids, there are going to be lots of further mutations. And we will mention this. Because all the microorganisms, they have their own replication, transcription, translation pathway. They have a lots of alternatives to do that, to combat all of those stress environments and some of the external impacts. Okay, so just want to let you know. But how about bacteria? We're going to talk later on. It's more complicated than virus. Okay, so this is a little bit about virus. Okay, when we talk about these acellular, in slides it's mentioned some of the other things. We're going to mention them briefly. First of all, I want to mention this guy called prions. This is a protein. Not even nucleic acids cause a problem. You heard about this sometime in the news or in the old newsletters or sometimes in a story or in the other classes. Mad cow disease. This is one started in 1997 in British Britain. It caused severe damage for all those cows. The cows can be all can do is killed and buried. Severe damage by the international trading between the meat products from the cows, even the bulls and the cattle. Even today, I think the United States beef products cannot ship into China, Russia, and Australia. Those three countries still forbidden that because of the violence called the medical disease back in 1997. So you know about that, the violence. Okay? Now, by the way, the violence, if it happens on the human being, what's going to happen is the Kulu disease. Kulu disease is people always laughing because the muscle is relaxing. So think about this, if you're laughing the whole day, is that going to be good or not good? Because that's a virus. Okay? Okay, viruses. We're going to talk another one. Varroils. This is sometimes is a very simple RNA. Not barely has DNA, simple RNA. This is usually called plant disease. In Philippines, back in 1996, there's a big varroils contamination with all those trees, and then they cause a flooding, then they got contaminated with everyone. So varroils. Now, the slides mention about satellites. This one, I never heard about that, and I don't think you heard about that. We can, just an example of called satellites, could be DNA or RNA. Okay? Now, all these we call it acellular, and the up above is cellular. So this is what I'm showing you, how you're going to learn the study, how you're going to learn the microbiology, is you're going to draw these things on your notebook. You, first of all, ask yourself, anything you know already, like bacteria, fungi, virus, you already know. Then you didn't know about those things, then you have to log the detail of the information. Okay, that's the way I learn myself all these things. So that is what is microorganism. Okay, we still have some time, so we're going to continue. Okay, how we gonna classification of microorganism? Very simple. 3 domain: bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. How they did that? They taken out of the DNA or other nucleic acids or other nuclear material, a genetic material from the microorganism. Then they run the 16 sRNA sequencing. They see the genetics difference, the genetics distance. If it's a very close distance, which means they are very close relationship, so they can classify them into the same group. Therefore, they have a bacteria, archaea, and a eukarya. Okay, so that's very briefly mentioned. What are the examples for microorganisms? What their impact in our life? Now, of course, you know it's bad. Everybody say bacteria is bad, because you know E. coli cause diarrhea, urinary tract infection. Salmonella is bad, cause foodborne disease in the poultry meats, eggs. Virus is bad, COVID-19, let you stay at home for a long time, damage your life. Flu, you don't like it, hepatitis. So it's always bad. Some examples. Fish, you see the bacterial infection? That's coming from some vibrio bacteria. Tomato, you see like this rotted end? That's caused by ammonia most of the time. Okay? Some of you have a conjunctivis eyes, but be careful. If you have a conjunctivis eye, does not mean you only have an eye problem. You may have a sexually transmitted disease. Some of them is showed up with conjunctivis of the eye. Strep throat. Before COVID-19, every time lots of people will send me an email. It's maybe true, maybe it's an excuse. Say, Dr. Shen, I'm not going to come into your class because I have a strep throat. This is what's a strep throat. Be careful, if you really have a strep throat, that's going to be severe. And I'll tell you why later on. We can talk about this almost 20 minutes, talk about strep throat caused by Streptococcus pyogenes. It's a very invasive pathogen. So most of the time what you have is just a common cold. And when you go to see a doctor, they will do a very strict, quick test that you see, put on your nose, to see whether you have a strep throat. If you have it, it's going to be like that. Accompanied with strawberry tongue. Okay, that's a strep throat. We will mention this in the examination 2 sections in more detail. So these are the examples. Before I move here, I want to mention this E. coli a little bit. Lots of the time, people talk about E. coli. Okay, you say E. coli is like very bad pathogen, cause like disease, diarrhea, vomiting. But I tell you, when you see E. coli has different categories or different kinds. Number one, sometimes E. coli is good. The full name E. coli. E-S-C, Escherichia coli. First of all, some of them are generic E. coli. Those are normal bacteria. These are usually normal. In the food and microbial area, they use genetic E. coli as an indication of sanitation. But basically it's good, it's normal. When we talk about the E. coli has a problem, most of them are E. coli, called E. coli 0157H7. This will generate a Shigei toxin. And most of them from undercooked beef. So for example, if you have a hamburger or you order beef to a medium rare status, that could be contaminated with E. coli 0157H7 called Shigei toxin. We'll call it hemorrhagic uremic syndrome, HUS. That's why people say it's bad. But this is only one example. They could be having a different type, like intoxication E. coli, entero-invasive E. coli, pathogenic E. coli. There's different type of it. Recent days, people find E. coli cause urinary tract infection. So they call it XP, urine E. coli. These are the E. coli coming from people has urinary tract infection, and then they go to the environments, and they could also go to the food chain, the food supply chain. That's really new. But then I also want to tell you, there are some of the E. coli are really good. E. coli 9037. This used for fermentation products in history, like a video, long time ago. So I just want to let you know, when you see the words E. coli, does not mean it's so bad. It depends on what type of the E. coli it is. Okay, just give you an example. So we mentioned bacteria always bad. Not really. Some of them are good. Okay, alcoholic beverages, you like it, is that right? We were mentioning in the fermentation parts. Look at this light. What are two types of the beer? What is called ALE, ALG, is it called lager or large? I don't know, lager, okay. Then that's the beer. We're going to talk about the beer fermentation a little bit from malted products, is that right? This is wine, red wine, white wine. We were making a little bit in the lab, very simple. Using grape can make a wine. I'll show you real quick. Okay, in the lab later. So alcohol beverages, you like that. Now antibiotics, we mentioned these days. Is the antibiotics going to working for virus? Of course not. It's only for bacteria. Where they come from? Most of them come from fungi. It's a metabolic product of a fungi. They use it to curing bacteria. Then we saw it's antibiotics. Insecticides causing killing those bugs or those, all kinds of stuff. So that's insecticides. This is what you like. You go have this for lunch or breakfast. Yogurt products, cheese, all kinds of cheese, yogurt, salt, cream. That's dairy products. So fermented with lactobacillus or any other things. So just give you an example. Sometimes microorganisms are very good. Okay, before end up today, we want to talk about the vaccination. Okay, that's some story behind that. We want to talk. So here we're going to move on to talk a little bit about the history of the microorganism after we give these introductions. So what are they? We're going to talk each of them one by one. Those are the major breakthroughs in the modern microbiology history in the recent 200 and 300 years. So we're going to first talk about vaccination. Okay, VACCI, vaccination. First of all, what is this word comes from? You know English, this is doesn't matter. NATION doesn't mean too much. What means VACCI? This is coming from Latin words, which means cow. Okay, there's a story behind that. VACCI means cow. No, there's a little bit different. Maybe I don't know Spanish. I only know Chinese and English and one dialect in my hometown. So some of them say it's a VACCA. If you know Spanish, I don't know. Some of you come from Mexico, maybe know it. That's what it means is a cow. Okay? What's the story behind that? This is the one which is related to a British scientist, a medical scientist called Edward Jenner. You're going to remember this name. I'm going to tell you this will be the exam. I'll tell you because it's very important. Edward Jenner. So what happened? Long time ago, there about I was another 500 years ago, maybe 1,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago. There is a very severe infectious disease called smallpox. And I tell you one thing, it's much severe compared to COVID-19. Just at the time, people cannot do anything. There's not that developed media, and so people doesn't know about. Later on, they know it. This is a virus. Cause severe flu-like symptoms accompanied with a very obvious rash. This one started